Hey everybody! I'm here today to tell you about some low power steering fluid signs and symptoms to look out for. If you think that your car might have low power steering fluid, you should look out for these signs and symptoms. Now, generally speaking, you should be looking for multiple of them together. Don't think you have low power steering fluid when you only see one sign or symptom. Don't automatically assume that that is the problem. You want to look for multiple together. Number one is difficulty turning the wheel. If you have difficulty turning your steering wheel, that's a huge indicator of low power steering fluid. It is something that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. You don't want to drive your car with difficulty turning the wheel unless you know what the problem is. So you want to really look into that. If you feel difficulty turning the wheel, look into that literally as soon as possible. Like pull over and try to look into it on the spot. Okay? Bring your car to a mechanic as soon as you can. If you don't know how to solve it yourself, bring it to a professional. Number two, loud steering. Steering is supposed to be relatively quiet. If you hear me turn my wheel, pretty quiet. But the problem is, when you have low power steering fluid, it lacks the lubrication that it needs, and it lacks the ability to turn more easily. Like the power steering is really what makes your wheel easier to turn. If you've ever driven a car without power steering, you'll know if you're at a standstill, you're like, I had a car that had no power steering, my first car literally was like, it was horrible, okay? So you know that it's supposed to be quiet, but if you have loud steering, that's definitely an indicator, okay? But there are many things that can cause loud steering, so don't automatically assume, once again. Number three, a squealing noise when the wheels are turned. So if you hear a car on the road, sometimes you probably heard it on the road, someone's waiting to make a turn and you hear like that, you hear that sound? That's usually low power steering fluid or an issue with the power steering components themselves. So if you hear that, you really need to get that addressed as soon as possible. If you hear that squealing, the legendary squealing noise, because everyone's heard this from a car or two, even a car or two per year on the road. It might be their car, it might be someone else's car. Number four, a vibrating steering wheel. Now, if your steering wheel vibrates when you're braking, that's a different story. That's likely to do with your brakes. But if your steering wheel vibrates all the time or even whenever you're turning, it could be an alignment issue. It could be a wheel weight issue. It could be a suspension issue, or it could be low power steering fluid. If you notice the vibrating increases as you're turning the wheel, definitely it's more geared towards looking like it's power steering fluid being low, but you got to look into it. You're looking for multiple symptoms together. Last but not least is number five, which is probably the easiest one, which is leaking fluid. You never want to see anything leaking from your car. Okay? If you do, you want to look into it. There are certain things that might be dripping from your car that are legitimately okay. It's part of natural condensation and stuff like that. But power steering fluid is not one of those things. You don't want to see power steering fluid on the floor. If you notice something leaking from your car and you see that it looks like power steering fluid, you got to inspect, because it means that maybe the leak just started. So you might not have low power steering fluid just yet, but you will have it in the future. So look into it. And that's it. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down below as a comment. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more great videos just like this one. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching.